Oh, sorry. You can go back to listening to the Dave Matthews that you were listening to that was so amazing, right?
Exactly. Okay, so before you and I start a fist fight verbally
about jam bands and non-jam bands.
No, just jam bands.
No.
Okay, so we Jesus. I tried so hard not to let myself fall into that trap, and I couldn't help it.
Oh, that was great.
Okay, so we should start the show by mentioning some legal news. And this interesting thing is, I'm not kidding. So, Marco, would you like to tell us about the Electronic Frontier Foundation?
There was this podcast patent that everyone was talking about in the last couple of years. Adam Carolla raised a bunch of money and actually challenged it because he was hit by a patent troll. So the patent in question was from a company called Personal Audio. They were patent trolling the podcast world for quite some time, going after most of the really big guys. The EFF raised a bunch of money and stepped in and filed an official challenge to it and cited real prior art and actually got the patent invalidated. So this decision came through about a week ago, a couple days, something like that. And the EFF has succeeded in invalidating this patent that was really threatening all podcasts and podcasters and podcast apps and everything that deals with podcasts. So I wanted to, at least, and I think we as a whole, I think I could speak for all of us to just thank the EFF for doing this. And I would highly suggest to our listeners, the EFF does a lot of great. This is the Electronic Frontier Foundation. The EFF, they do a lot of really great stuff for technology. They're a nonprofit, right?
I believe that's right.
And they are really they really fight the good fight on so many issues for tech. So I fully support the EFF, and I urge you to by going there and making a donation right now. So pause us, go make a donation to EFF. We will put the link in the show notes right at the top so you can see it, and they're really great.
Can I be the downer and say that the idea that the entire patent has been invalidated is almost certainly not entirely true? It's probably well, the major claims involved in the patent have been, but then they can appeal and blah 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 legally, so on and so forth. So the fight continues, and this is but one aspect of there are a million stupid patents. I believe the fund that the EFF uses to fight these is Mark Cuban's Battle Against Stupid Patents Fund or something. It actually has the word stupid in it. So they are fighting the good fight. And this is not the end of the fight, not even the end of the fight related to dumb podcasting patents, because I'm sure there's a treasure trove of equally stupid patents, or even this one may come back to life like a zombie. So
yeah, but this was a big one, and this was one that was being actively sued with. And so this is pretty big news. And they not only filed to get key claims invalidated, they succeeded in getting key claims invalidated. So that is pretty big news.
Yep, this is excellent. So thanks to the EFF, and like Marco said, please donate. Now, with that taken care of, let's talk some follow-up. So, John, do you want to tell us about the gap that may or may not exist on the Apple Watch?
This was a topic on last week's show, talking about the watch, and I think it was Marco had heard from somebody that had seen a watch, and you could see the gap, and he saw it in some of the videos, and we discussed it as a possible thing that they could improve on the future watches to possibly make it thinner and make it look more like it does in the carefully controlled beauty shots on Apple's websites, where it just looks like a black smooth surface that has little lights on it, and you don't see where the actual panel is inside there. And a lot of people wrote in to tell us that there is no air gap in there, because if you watch a Johnny Ive video, he says that the screen is laminated to the crystal. This was Jeremy Herberline who sent this to us via Twitter. And a couple other people said that if you watch the video, he says some models or something have the screen laminated. And I think, who is this? Marco in the note saying that maybe the air gap is only visible on the Sport, and maybe it's laminated on the Edition and on the watch version of it.
Yeah, because the claim is that most watch models have a display that is laminated directly to the sapphire crystal. So that leaves room for the Sport not to have it, and also because the Sport doesn't have sapphire,
right?
That I think that's probably pretty clear. And it could also be that the Sport is still laminated, just not to sapphire. But that's an awfully twisted sentence for Johnny Ive to have said unnecessarily. I'm guessing that there actually is some kind of small gap or some kind of different process for making the screen with the Ion X glass for the Sport versus making the laminated sapphire one. And I tried. I went to the Apple Store a couple times since the watch became visible there, and I tried seeing any difference between the two, and I couldn't get a long enough look at at them to really say for sure. But you are able to see at certain angles the outline, the rectangle of what the screen is versus what the whole front face is. And it does kind of ruin the illusion because the entire UI is designed for everything to go edge to edge, to not have any margin. Like if you look at the iPhone UI, there's always some margin around the edges inside the screen area. The watch, everything's designed with a black background, and they even say, like, go edge to edge. Please go edge to edge with all your stuff, because it's not a big enough screen that you can afford margin. And the bezel around it, or the bezel around it, is wide enough that is like a good aesthetic margin. But that illusion is a little bit weakened if you're able to see in real life, like where the edges of the screen actually are inside that bezel. So it is ideal if you can't see.
Yeah, there's two issues here. With the air gap is like maybe the image doesn't look like it's on the surface. It looks like it's sunken down. And then independent of the air gap, regardless of whether it's laminated or not, you have, can I see the panel edges? And the panel edges just, I'm assuming, have to do with differences in the reflectiveness of the material that the panel is made out of and the area that doesn't have a panel underneath it. So those are both things that they can improve independently. If every single screen is laminated, maybe they could, depending on the thickness of the material, get more of getting the image to look like it's on the surface of the glass rather than deep down into the glass. And then the outline, I'm not sure what they could do about that. I guess get a panel that is darker when light shines on it, or try to put some material behind all of the glass so it looks the same so you can't see the edges. But the aesthetics, and you can look at all the pictures that Apple takes, they're going for the idea that this is just a magical curved black top thing and parts of it light up. And you don't need to know where the edges are, and you shouldn't know that, for example, the 8 in the time is actually jammed up against the left edge of the screen and the top edge of the screen, because you would never know that, because where's the edge of the screen, right? And so that is a clever and economical use of screen real estate, but you really don't want to see the fact that there are no margins, because if you can see the lighter gray rectangle, it makes that 8 shoved up into the corner and not look so hot.
Now, speaking of the watch, we should cover what we did or did not pre-order on Friday. So let's start with you, Marco. Did you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning? And if so, or I guess whether or not you did you order one or more watches?
I woke up at 2:58 in the morning, and I kept hitting refresh in the app, which really just means force quitting the app and relaunching it. This is the Apple Store app on iOS, which is, in the last few launches, it has really been like the way to do it, because whatever API the app is pulling for information seems to be much more reliable, or at least much simpler than the Apple Web Store. And so the app very rarely has any kind of reliability issues during these big floods of pre-orders, while the website regularly does. So the app is really, and the app you can use Touch ID to pay, which is awesome. If you have Apple Pay set up, you can just pick what you want, and you can even mark it as a favorite ahead of time. You just open up the app, go to your favorites, hit the thing, hit add to cart, hit checkout, and you just thumbprint and it's done. And it's like the fastest pre-order process you can possibly have. So definitely recommend that approach for pre-ordering. So anyway, I did that, and I immediately, the store didn't come up for me until about 3:02, a couple minutes after 3, and immediately, as soon as I looked, the one I had picked out, which was the black leather loop 42 with the steel watch, was already 4 to 6 weeks late. I really wanted something to come immediately for development reasons. I kind of have to, so rather than get a second watch, which would be stupid, I elected to change my order to the only one of the steel ones that was still showing delivers, April 24th to May, whatever, like the first delivery slot. The only one that had the first delivery slot was the 42 Milanese loop. So I went with that. After trying them on in store later that day, I changed my opinion slightly of some of these things. Glad I didn't get the leather loop, because I really don't like the leather loop. I wrote a blog post about all this stuff. In fact, both of us did, Casey. So I won't go too far into it. Suffice to say, the leather loop is not as soft or as comfortable or as convenient to use as I wanted. So I then ordered separately for quote May delivery the two bands that I was most impressed by, which were the Link bracelet and the classic buckle. And then I will keep one or both of those when they arrive. We'll see.
So you ordered a Link bracelet separately to the tune of like $500 or whatever it was?
I did, yeah. What I loved about the Link bracelet that none of the other ones had, except for the modern buckle, is remember I was talking about like what I really wanted most was quick release and quick attachment with the size being preset all the time, because I don't want to have to like mess with the Link bracelet or mess with the band. And like I found when I was trying on the Milanese loop in the store, I was constantly fiddling. Like I would put it on and this is a little bit too loose, tighten a little bit too tight. I have to constantly be adjusting that band because I know myself. I know I'm like picky and a little bit obsessive about things like that, and so I know that not having it be exactly my correct setting every single time would drive me crazy.
Well, on that topic, we got some feedback about this. I think it was email, but my first question about all this is like, how often do you think you're taking this thing on and off? I mean, maybe, I guess, like, yeah, they got to wash dishes. You got to take it off, wash dishes, put it back on. Is it like a speed contest? Is it like you have to get it on and off within 3 seconds or something bad happens? It's like you put it on in the morning, you take it off at night. That's 2 times a day. Not that I'm, you can have whatever, criteria you want for your purchase, but that seems weird to me. But the second thing is that a couple of listeners brought up is the exact sizing thing. Your wrist changes size based on like how hot you are, how much humidity there is, how long the day has gone on, right? And if you're that sensitive to a particular fit, you may have to end up adjusting it anyway. And it's actually easier to readjust something like the Milanese loop as you bloat during the day, right? Or go out into the cold or whatever, than it would be to try to adjust the Link bracelet, which is not like adjustable with bare hands. So it depends on how sensitive you are to the specific adjustments. But I always say like the plain old, whatever it is, the classic buckle that has like a bunch of holes.
Yep.
You're going to pick one hole. That's going to be the hole that you use. And because there is no possibility of fine adjustments, at least I think I would sort of mentally accept the fact that I won't be fine adjusting this. I'm just going to have to pick whichever hole works best. And there's probably going to be one that I'm going to have to deal with both when it's cold and when it's hot, and when my arms are puffy and when they're not. And it's going to be, well, that's the hole the thing goes in. I guess you could do the same thing with a Link bracelet of just like, well, this is the size I adjust a Link bracelet to, and I'm not readjusting it because it's a pain and you need tiny screwdrivers or whatever the hell you need.
No, it's buttons, but yeah. So to go back, the person who challenged us was Dr. Drang on Twitter, our friend Dr. Drang, and he said, why am I taking off a watch so much besides just once, putting it on in the morning, taking it off at night? The answer to that is I don't know how often I'm putting this thing on and off. I am, because I work at home and I'm helping out with our kid and everything, I am very often like washing hands, washing things, getting wet, helping with the bath, all this stuff. Like I'm constantly getting my hands wet and washing things. And so I think there's a very good chance I'll be taking it off more than once a day. But it's more that I haven't worn a watch since forever ago. So for 20 years, I haven't worn a watch. So any annoyance of wearing a watch is going to be amplified in my mind because I'm not used to it. So just the process of putting it on in the morning, taking it off at night, and putting it in the charger, all of those things are going to slightly annoy me for a while. So my goal here was to maximize comfort and minimize annoyance. So that's why my reservation with the Link bracelet is that it is pretty heavy, and at the very end of when I was trying it on, I did get a pinched arm hair, and everybody says that always happens to them. So my guess is the Link bracelet's probably going to be back ordered and arrive later, and my guess is that the classic buckle will arrive first, and I will like it so much that I will probably just cancel the order for the Link bracelet.
Yeah, I mean, I've worn a watch most of my life, and we probably covered this last episode, but suffice it to say, I went a few years when I first got my iPhone where I stopped wearing it. And then, I don't know, not long ago, I started wearing a cheap watch again. And the only time I take my watch off during the day is if it's bath time with Declan. If I'm washing dishes, it stays on. If I'm washing my hands, it stays on. If I'm doing almost anything except bath time, or, if I happen to go swimming one day for some reason, that watch stays on. So I don't want to speak for you. I mean, I don't know if maybe you're the kind of guy that like takes everything out of his pockets the moment he arrives anywhere. I don't remember you being that way, but you could be. And maybe takes his watch off the minute you're standing still for more than a second. But for me, I never take my watch off except when I go to bed. I don't know. All right. So John, what did you order or did you not?
Before we get to that, I have one more thing related to all the people telling stories about ordering at 3 a.m., which a lot of people that I know or follow on Twitter did. having heard them on podcasts and read their tweets and seen their timelines, I'm very surprised by how many of them said, like Marco did, I set my alarm for 2:57, for 2:58, and then woke up and ordered the watch. And I'm surprised by that because if I was going to wake up in the middle of the night to order something, I would not want to put such a small margin on, like, if anything goes wrong, if you can't get on the Wi-Fi for a second, or if the app launches slow, or if you're groggy and you tap the wrong thing, why in the world would you cut it so close? I mean, 2:55, is it going to kill you to, like, wouldn't you want, it just amazes me that I'm assuming people are reading the real time. They really set their alarm for 2:58 and then just kind of like rolled over and grabbed their iPod. I mean, maybe it's a testament to how easy it is to order from the little app thing, but geez, I would never cut it that close. Like, it's not even worth, because what I feel like if I woke up at that time and, like, because of some stupid tech thing, didn't actually get to order until 5 minutes after. It's crazy. And everybody, like, I must be the weird one, because everybody I've heard set their alarm within like 1, 2, or 3 minutes of 3 a.m. And I think you're all crazy. I mean, what if your NTP server, you haven't updated your time for a while and you're off by a minute or two? Like, by the time you get the iPod out, people could have already ordered it anyway.
Yeah, but what you're forgetting, though, is that California in general, and certainly Apple pre-orders, when have they ever been exactly on time?
You never know. Like, why risk it? You're making yourself miserable waking up in the middle of the night anyway. Why would you not give yourself a margin of error? These are the type, and especially Marco, who now lives in New York, is not representing well for you in New York. These are the people who are not on time to things, because they're like, well, it only takes me 5 minutes to get from here to there. You know, yes, if conditions are perfect, you can't leave yourself 5 minutes.
Well, okay, in my defense, first of all, there's usually not a lot of contention for the Wi-Fi in my house at 3 a.m.
You never know what's going to happen. What if you had to use cellular? What if there was a power outage in the middle of the night? What if,
that takes 2 seconds to switch. And so my rationale there is, because I'm actually waking myself up for this, I'm not just staying awake for it. I'm waking up from sleep for this. I want to be awake for the shortest time possible, because the longer I'm awake, the harder it will be to go back to sleep.
This is like the watch taking off thing. I want to be able to get the watch on and off really fast, and I want to be awake for 3 minutes, not 5.
I was seriously considering just not waking up for it and just waking up at like 6 or 7 in the morning, right, for the day.
That is also a valid choice. I'm just saying, for the people who decided they were going to wake up in the middle of the night, why risk making that all for nothing?
Well, because the reality is, usually with these things, like, if you wake up in the middle of the night and order the new iPhone when it comes out, you don't really have to do that. Like, you can probably wake up at 7 or 8 in the morning and order it then, and you'll probably still get day one stock. There's so much stock of most of these new products when they release that you don't really have to worry about that too much. With this, the risk was a little bit higher, because it's like, well, they're saying they're going to have limited stock. It is a brand new kind of thing, not just a brand new generation of something. So maybe they'll have very few of them, and that proved to be true. But the risk of missing it by a minute is really not that high. And by the way, like, here it came up at like 3:02 or whatever. Some people that I read, I was seeing responses on Twitter, because I kept switching back. Like, well, once it didn't go for a while, I was like, switch back to Twitter, check it for like 5 seconds, and go back to the app, try again. And people had already put in their orders when my app was still launching clean and then saying not available. So there's actually these little delays, like with like various, I assume it's like a CDN propagation.
Well, that's why you got to have redundancy. You should be checking on your computer and also on your iPod, and maybe through a VPN to something else so you get a different CDN.
Yeah, but see, like, for something like WWDC tickets, back when that was the lottery, or that was the like just rush system, which we'll talk about, but back during that, it made more sense, because like the risk was higher. You knew that was going to sell out in a very, very, very short time. Whereas with new product launches, it usually is not that severe if you're a minute after everybody else.
Well, anyway, I didn't wake up in the middle of the night. I didn't order a watch. I did think more about ordering watches, and I did think about getting to the store to look at them, but I have done neither of those things.
Now you have until June to think about it.
Yeah, and from the sound of it, it's like, if you didn't order immediately, then, although I may have, I don't know. I haven't made any decision about the watch. Sometimes I think I should just definitely get like a really fancy one, because who the hell cares? And sometimes I think, what are you doing? You shouldn't buy any of these things. You're never going to use it. So far, that has resulted in no action on my part. Casey?
I talked about this at length on Analog, which won't be out until this coming Sunday, and by the time we get this episode out, it'll probably be Friday, so there'll be a little lag. But the short version is, I was in DC. I was going to give a talk, actually the opening keynote at CocoConf DC, And because of that, I knew I shouldn't be waking up at 3 a.m. So I woke up at about 7, actually a couple minutes before my alarm, and thought, oh, let me look at Twitter and see how it went, and saw that there were like 350 missed tweets. And so I immediately scrolled to the top and said, the hell with that. Then I opened the Apple Store app on my phone and saw, oh my God, they're shipping in June. I must have one. I must order it now. And so I had tremendous fear of missing out, as Mike pointed out to me.
I believe it's pronounced FAMA.
I think you're thinking of FOMO, but I'm with you. So in any case, what I ended up doing was ordering a. I always get it wrong. Is it Space Gray Sport or Space Black Sport? Space Gray?
The Geek Watch?
Yeah, the Geek Watch.
Yeah. 42 Space Gray Sport with black sport band.
That's exactly it. So that is what I ordered, and it is not due in until June sometime. And I wrote, as Marco had alluded to, I wrote a blog post about this. I'm still not sure how I feel about all of it. Obviously, I ordered one, so I feel strongly enough that either I'm scared of missing out or that it might be good that I place the order. But I don't know. I keep going back and forth, kind of like what John had said, that this should probably just get canceled. I probably shouldn't even get this. And then 5 minutes later, actually, I think this might be really awesome, and I start thinking about all the cool things I can do with it. But in the end, I figure I'll just let it go, and I'll receive the watch in June, probably after WWDC. So I'll look at all of you with your cool kid watches, and I'll be looking at my Timex Weekender crying. But yeah, so I'll get the watch, and then I'll use it for a week and a half, and if I like it, sweet, then I'm glad I ordered. And if I don't like it, no worries, I'll return it, and life goes on.
I think the way they did it. So before, did your opinion change after you did a try-on appointment? Because you went to see them later in person. Did your opinion of any of these choices change then?
My opinion about watch bands changed dramatically, and I no longer lost nearly as much over what Stephen Hackett dubbed the Darth Vader watch, which is the
Black Link.
The Black Link. I went to 2 different try-on appointments. I crashed Joel Hausman and Steph Hausman's try-on appointment. They're friends of mine and Marcos as well that live up in D.C. And so I crashed their try-on appointment over lunch Friday, and I didn't try on the watch, but I got to feel all the different bands just, on the little mat, and I got to play with the demo unit that's housed in acrylic. And I left that thinking, my goodness, this is really bad, because the demo unit I used was really non-responsive, really, really laggy. I did not care for it at all. Fast forward a couple of days, and I went myself and did a try-on Sunday, and I decided, in short, that I really do like the Black Sport Band. It feels a lot better than I expected, although I agree with you, Marco. I'm a little scared about the sweatiness factor. I didn't really care for the Link bracelet as much as I thought I would, but I think that's in large part because the particular Link bracelet that they had for try-on was like 3 feet too big for my wrist, and
your people wouldn't adjust it, right?
And I kind of hinted, these are really easy to change, right? And hoping the gentleman would be like, well, yes, let me show you, but he wanted none of it.
Well, officially, their training tells them they are not allowed to take out links for sizing. Many of the employees are either not unaware of that or are ignoring that and doing it anyway. Which I don't see why they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like, it makes such a big difference when you're wearing it, whether it's fit to you or not.
I can see why. Don't you see why they don't want them to do that?
Well, because they don't want people stealing the links or something.
Little pieces, they'll get lost. Yeah, totally.
It's under pretty good security. There's all they can only have 2 watches out at a time, and there's lots of people watching over you, no pun intended, and there's guards at the door and everything. I mean, somebody who's really good at sleight of hand could probably get one, but it's not.
Well, you're not trying to steal them. It's they'll just fall on the ground. They'll fall in someone's sandal in California, and they'll just walk out with it. It'll be in someone's pocket. They'll be scattered on the table, and they won't get all the pieces up again. They'll just constantly be losing pieces.
In practice, the appointments I've seen, I've only gone to one store, but because of various iPhone and laptop service appointments I had, I've actually been there 3 times since the watch has started, and it's never been crowded. Now, granted, I go during non-peak times because going during peak times is stupid, but it is not like some mad rush for the watch tables.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that the two Tryon appointments that I went to, one again that I was not the star of the show, if you will, and the other one I was, both times in two different Apple stores, a couple hours apart in terms of driving distance, the people that were doing the try-on, the employees were super nice, super patient, super helpful, really wanted to impress upon us that these are really nice devices, and they were willing to take as much time as we wanted in order to convince us that we wanted to buy. Not, well, that sounds shady, but in other words, like they just wanted us to be happy with our try-on experience, and it was really nice. So trying them on, I liked the black leather band a lot. I had heard rumblings that the other sport. I'd heard rumblings that the other sport bands felt different, and so I asked to feel the white one, and it is very different, and I far preferred the black. I didn't really care for the Link bracelet because it was too big and too heavy, which was very surprising to me because I've had Link bracelet watches in the past, and I've liked them. And I actually really, really like the Milanese loop. However, I do understand where you're coming from, Marco, because my inclination was to put it on and leave it a little bit loose, probably too loose for the heart rate sensor. And so I wonder if living with it would actually be more frustrating than I think it would be because I'd have to tighten it often. So I can see where you're coming from, Marco, on that one, that it may, even though I think it's my favorite sitting here now, living with it, I may change my tune. Although I have not ordered one, sitting here now, there's no way I'm going to have a Milanese loop because I haven't ordered it, don't plan to, but we'll see what happens.
So, our first sponsor this week is Automatic, your smart driving assistant on your smartphone. Go to automatic.com/ATP. Automatic is this little dongle that plugs into the OBD2 port on your vehicle. This is a little diagnostic port. Usually it's in the driver's footwell area. And this is where like garages and stuff will plug in their computer things to see the error codes your car is reporting to them and figure out various parameters. You know, if you're running tests, you can figure out like gas efficiency and stuff like that. Well, anyway, Automatic connects this to a smartphone app and to intelligent software that they wrote. So they are able to use the power of software to read this data and do cool stuff with it. So they can also read your fuel efficiency. They can tell you how fast you're going, how much you're using the accelerator, how much gas you're burning. They can tell by combining it with the phone's GPS where you are, what kind of routes you take. They can tell you where you parked your car even because they know that this is combined in there. And it gives you real-time feedback right as you're driving. That can really save you hundreds of dollars a year on gas. If you wanted to, you can have it make a subtle sound to tell you like, oh, you're accelerating too hard to meet your fuel efficiency goal this week or whatever. It's really great stuff. It really does combine the intelligence of software with all the amazing data that your vehicle has that normally you don't really have any insight into. You can't really access it. Of course, it can do the basics, like it can tell you if your car has the check engine light on or any kind of error code that's reporting. It can tell you what it is. Sometimes you can even clear those errors right from your app on your phone. It can even call emergency services for you automatically in a serious crash. So if you are unable or if you're just too slow to get to your phone after a crash, that you can have it call it for you. This is pretty serious stuff. Pretty awesome. They also have a whole API. And they have integration with IFTTT so that you can do things like, for instance, you can say, as you head home from work, automatically connect to my Nest thermostat and turn the heat on or turn the air conditioning on so that by the time you get home, it's nice and cool or nice and warm in your house. There's all sorts of stuff you can integrate through IFTTT or using their API directly. It's really pretty great. You can download your driving data, you can download your history, your metrics, all these things all this data you're collecting through this port. You can even subscribe to API events for things like when you start and stop the car, if the check engine light comes on for any reason. Really, really great stuff. This is all available for both iOS and Android. They are equal opportunity app makers, iOS and Android. And all this is available at automatic.com/ATP. Now, normally, this is $100, and there is no subscription fee on this. There's no monthly cost. Now, we have a special offer for 20% off that base price. So it's just $80 if you order it through our link, automatic.com/ATP. That gives you $80 for the price, free shipping in 2 business days, and a 45-day return policy. So just try it out. There's really no risk. 45-day return policy. Try it out. $80, no monthly fee. You buy it up front, and that's it. You don't have to pay them per month. Automatic.com/ATP. Thanks a lot to Automatic for sponsoring our show once again. These have been longtime sponsors of ours. We even mentioned them back in the Neutral days. We talked about them during one of the Neutral episodes. So pretty cool. Thanks a lot to Automatic. Automatic.com/ATP.
Excellent. So we have to sort of kind of follow the sponsor break with a sponsor break. And this sponsor break is for us. Because guess what time it is? It's WWDC time. And guess what that means, kids? It means it's T-shirt time.
That means we have our act together early this year, relatively early. Like we are not scrambling at the last second. It's a miracle.
We've actually prepared a short introduction with it to play for you right now.
From the beginning, what has driven ATP Clothing is a compulsion to take incredible T-shirts and make them accessible, relevant, and ultimately personal. We've conceived, designed, and developed a range of T-shirts so personal that you can actually wear them. ATP Shirt is a singular product with a design that connects with the wearer at an intimate level to embrace individuality whilst also referencing traditional shirt vocabulary. We've created 3 distinct collections. For ATP Shirt, we start with a blend of 3 fibers known for their softness and durability. Cotton is both strong and beautiful and has long been used to make fine T-shirts. We combine it with polyester and rayon for increased resilience and innovative draping to make the softest, most comfortable T-shirts in the world. ATP Shirt Sport is breathable, high-performance activewear, and yet it's incredibly light and durable for maximum performance. ATP Shirt Edition is uniquely luxurious, printed with exquisite gold-colored foil that textile specialists have developed to be much thinner and softer than real 18-karat gold. We designed ATP Shirt as a whole range of T-shirts, enabling uncompromising individuality and elegance. We're now at a compelling beginning, actually designing T-shirts to be worn and to be truly personal.
I'm trying so hard to compose myself, but that is so magnificent. Oh, thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Matt Alexander, for stepping in and being the token Brit for that, because we couldn't have had it any other way.
He's the only Brit you know, right?
Well, one of 2.
It's Matt and Mike. It's the M named Brits. But
yeah. And Matt told me he didn't want anything for this. However, I have to thank his wonderful business, neededition.com. That's Need, who has sponsored us before. For giving up his time to let him do this for me, even though he's the boss. But yeah, he's a great guy. So for more information on our shirts, go to atp.fm/shirt to see the full collection of ATP Shirt. We have 3 sub collections. I don't know, what are they called? 3. You can't say editions. ATP Shirt has 3 collections that we've curated.
Exactly.
Orders are now live. There's no pre-order wait. We won't sell them to you in 6 months. They're now live. It's only here for a brief time because it's the Teespring model. So you got to, pre-order a bunch, and then they print them all at once, and then that's it. So if you want one, you got to hurry up. It's about 10 days or something like that?
21 days.
Oh, good. Well, still hurry up because, podcast people are, you're probably not listening to this immediately when we release it. And if you are, thank you. But check it out, atp.fm/shirt. You don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. to order it. You can order it right now. And so I'm so happy this happened.
I'm so happy this happened. And to be clear, in case you are in a position, maybe you're driving and you're not able to look at the website, we really genuinely do have 3 collections. We have the ATP Shirt Sport, which is printed on kind of sort of Under Armour. It's what is this? High Performance Hanes Cool Dry Activewear. We have the ATP Shirt, which is it's tri-blend and cotton.
Yep.
And then we have the ATP Shirt Edition. Marco, this is an especially wonderful touch. Would you like to explain to us the ATP Shirt Edition?
The edition actually has gold-colored foil as the ink. I don't know how this works. I don't know anything about clothing, but apparently this is a thing that like is actually fairly common these days. There's actually like a gold-colored foil as the print, so that we have a gold edition of our shirt.
This is so amazing. I'm so happy about this.
And it does not cost $10,000.
No, it does not. Although, relatively speaking, it might as well, because it's going to be...
Well, don't tell people. Just ATP shirt starts at $20. We'll tell you in 6 months what the rest of the prices are.
Oh, God. See, I'm terrible at this. I am not good at marketing.
No, it's all, so, yeah, the ATP shirt Sport is $20. ATP shirt is $25 in 4 different colors. And ATP shirt edition starts at $50 and also ends at $50.
Yeah, unlike Apple, we will tell you the product mix. You'll be able to tell for yourself because there's little bar charts on every single page. So you can find, we have literally no idea which shirts these people are going to buy. If everyone wants to buy a $20 shirt, fine, go ahead, right? So we have no idea what the mix is going to be, but you guys will tell us. Get out there and buy some shirts, and then you can look at the little comparison bar charts, and you'll see, is everybody buying the Sport, like the Apple Watch? You don't have to, those all come at the same time, roughly, so you don't have to buy one to get it sooner, but does everybody buy the shirt? We're kind of, the part of the joke is we're using the same ridiculous product naming that Apple did, but now we're suffering for it because we can't even talk about our own shirts because it's impossible to say, are you getting the ATP shirt or the edition shirt edition? Oh, anyway, go to the page. It has pictures. Click on the one you want and buy it. There's men's and women's style. Make sure you don't accidentally buy a men's shirt when you wanted a women's or vice versa, because the previews kind of look the same, particularly the Sport shirt. The men's is in blue and the women's is in white, and that's it. There's no men's white, there's no women's blue. And they do look kind of similar. So, and the other shirts, you can get them in black and gray. Make sure you're buying the one you want to get.
Oh, this is so magnificent. I'm genuinely so happy that this came together. We may sell 5 shirts, and I'm still going to be thrilled that this all happened.
Yeah, none of us have any idea, as we're saying this, like how many editions we're going to sell. We have no clue. I think we're going to sell a lot.
I'm trying not to buy one of each. Like, I tend to buy my own shirts, even though I don't wear them, to just have them, which is why I'm the proud owner of every color of the Hypercritical shirt.
Those will be worth something someday.
In pristine condition, that's right. But I can't buy this many shirts. I don't know which one I'm going to get.
We've sold a total of 6 editions already. 3 of the black and 3 of the red.
How many of those are Marco, though?
I haven't ordered mine yet.
5.
No, I'm going to order one of each of the editions. I have to get one for my wife, of course, and I'll get the men's for me. And of course, and we have to tell people in the tradition of some other product line we've heard about recently, the editions are the only difference really is the colors available and the gold foil print.
Yeah, they all have the same CPU.
Yep, they all have
same amount of RAM.
They are just as fast. They all have the same Bluetooth connectivity, which is none.
Same artwork.
Same amount of space, same artwork. Different colors of the artwork. Slightly different positions on some of them because of the different shaped shirts.
Right, and there's no bands, but you are the band in the shirt.
Yes.
Think of yourself as the band. You are a leather loop winding your way through the shirt.
And you come in all different colors and styles, and you are special.
This is so amazing.
I can't believe we actually did this.
I can't either. I'm so happy.
I'm just glad we did it first.
Yeah, I was afraid of that, honestly, like because now we're in T-shirt season for podcasters and geek things because it's near WWDC time, and so this is when everyone's making their shirts.
All right, so we can segue right into WWDC where we hope to see these shirts because they are shipping May 6th or something. WWDC starts June 8th, so there should be plenty of time for you to get your shirts and wear them to WWDC, where we hope to see you, right, guys?
Well, I'll be there.
Okay, so let's get this out of the way right up front. Whether or not you receive a ticket, Marco, you have just said you are going?
Yes, I've already booked a non-refundable plane ticket, and I booked a hotel, so I'm there regardless. Because there's so much good stuff. Like, now there's AltConf, and I saw Jesse Charles doing a design conference. So like there's everyone's there, and there's all these like smaller gatherings of people who get together and watch the live stream and watch the keynote and then watch the sessions and everything. So there's a bunch of good stuff going on. I don't hope that I don't get a ticket, but if I don't get a ticket, I'm kind of looking forward to being forced to go explore more of these things, like AltConf, because it really does seem like there's a lot of good stuff going on out there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I am also going. have booked my return flight, although coincidentally I have not yet booked my outgoing flight because I'm trying to work out with Erin whether or not she and Declan are going to come as well.
Just leave him home. He's fine. He's old enough now.
Yeah, he's old enough. He's 5.5 months. He'll be fine. We'll see what happens, but I am going to be going for the week. I'll be flying back Friday afternoon, which we should also talk about in a moment. John, what is your agenda?
I, like both of you, entered into the ticket lottery. If I do not get a ticket, probably won't be going. I have hotel reservations, but they're cancelable. I have not booked a plane flight yet. I'm just hoping. I mean, I'll just have to wait and see and decide then. But right now, I don't know if, like the whole reason I would be going is to go to WWDC. I don't have apps that I'm developing. I don't think I can justify going out there for a whole week for nothing, but I don't know. I'll decide when I find out what the result of the lottery is. But unlike the two of you, I'm not committing to going at this point.
Okay. Now, would it affect your decision if we asked all of the internet to shame you and tweet at you and say you should go?
No, I don't think so. All the internet's not going to be there anyway. All the internet could be home the same as me watching the live streams of the sessions. You know what I mean?
Some sessions.
Would you, if you don't go, would you actually watch the live streams, or would you just treat it like a normal work week and just kind of ignore it and say, oh, I'll watch them later and then never watch them?
The fact that they're live, it's not the live. Like last year, wasn't it like they had the streams basically that night or the next day, or like there was a one-day leg? That's fine. Like that's what I would do is I would come home from work and, put the kids to bed and then watch some WWDC sessions, I don't care that I don't have to see them live, except for maybe I would take a day off to see Keynote and State of the Union live. But other than that,
Yep. All right. So let's talk about the ticketing system. And Marco, you had said you had some things to say, so I'll just kick it right over to you.
Yeah, I thought so. So last year was the first year for the lottery, right? Last year?
I believe you are correct. I believe it was last year.
Right. So basically, before the system was just you show up and buy a ticket, just like ordering a phone, and when they run out, they run out. And after a couple of years of that happening like crazily quickly, they switched to a lottery system where you have a few days window to go and say, consider me for a ticket. And so you throw your hat in the ring, and what they did last year was they would email you after those few days, after submissions were cut off, and if you got in, they'd email you and say, hey, here's a link, you can buy the ticket within 24 hours or whatever. Overall, it was a very good system. The only real flaw in that is that it allowed people to duplicate sign up. So if you had more than one developer account, which many people do, especially consultants or people who who work full time and then do their own side projects or whatever.
Hi.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people have multiple developer accounts, and so that allowed you to sign up. It was stupid not to. You should use multiple developer accounts to increase your chances last year. And so a lot of people did. Also, that allowed people to take up slots in the system who maybe weren't that serious, didn't really want to go that badly, but I don't really want to go that badly, but if I get a ticket, then I'll go, right? This year, and last year, I forget, somewhere I mentioned that they should do it this way, and this year they changed it so that this year, in order to be considered for a ticket, you had to put in your credit card and basically place an order. And if they choose you, they're just going to charge your credit card, and it's non-refundable. So if you sign up with multiple developer accounts, there's a chance that more than one of them will win the lottery, and you'll just be you'll be out $1,600. Like, you'll be just out. And the tickets are non-transferable and everything. And in the past, that's been mixed as to whether you could actually transfer them or not. But they're pretty serious about it this time. So we don't know if you can actually easily transfer a duplicate ticket if you get one from different accounts. So really, it's like this time there's very little reason to sign up multiple accounts or to sign up if you're not really that serious about it. Because if you quote win the lottery and they pick you, you literally just get charged, and that's it. And there's no recourse.
I don't know how many people were aware of that, though, because I certainly wasn't. I went through the whole process, as always. I did one entry. I did one entry last year. I did one entry this year. I don't have multiple accounts that are even eligible to buy from, I think. So but I did not notice any, like, who reads the fine print? Like, I'm sure that was in there somewhere, but I'm just like, click, 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 done.
Same here.
I imagine a lot of people are going to be unpleasantly surprised when they get charged $1,600 3 times instead of the one, or when they go to cancel. All right, I won the lottery 3 times. I just got to cancel the other 2. Nope. I mean, like, you can always do a chargeback on the credit card company. I'm sure there are ways out of this, but I don't think that was expressed in the UI in a way that made people aware of it. I think after the fact, now we're all aware of it because we're all reading each other's blog posts from the people who did read the fine print, right?
I am right there with you, John. I registered on my personal account, immediately went and registered on my work account, and then like 3 hours later, a friend of the show, _David Smith, said to me, yeah, man, that sucks about the Insta charging. And my words, not his. And I said, wait, what? He said, yeah, they're going to charge you instantly if you win. Oh. And so I immediately backed off. I forget which one, but I backed off, and I think withdrew is the term they used. One of the 2 hats I threw in the ring. So I think this makes sense. I think this makes perfect sense from Apple's perspective, in that they don't want someone to put in 2 or 5 or 10 entries. And if you could potentially win every single one, you're not likely to do that like you did last year. But what I wonder is, to John's point, it wasn't really obvious that was the case. And even if you were like, screw it, there's no way I'll win, and you put in 2 or 3 or 4 entries, and then what if all 4 of them, let's say, win? What are you going to do? I mean, if you can't transfer them, or if you're a solo person and you have no one to transfer them to, even if you wanted to, what are you going to do? Are they really going to have 4 empty slots at WWDC? Like, when push comes to shove, do you really think Apple's going to be like, well, tough noogies?
Well, I mean, like, we had an email question asking about this, but and of course, past years don't have necessarily have any bearing on the current year. But the general process has been, for the few years that I've gone, is that you go and pick up your badge, and you have to show them ID or whatever, prove that you are who you are in some way, and that's the only time they ever connect a person to a badge. So if you bought 4 of them on 4 personal accounts, you could go and pick up one badge, go out. Go and pick up your second badge, go out. Go and pick up your third badge, go out. Go and pick up your 4th badge, go out. Now you have 4 WWDC badges that you could distribute to your 4 coworkers or friends. And for the rest of the conference, everyone is just looking to see that you have a badge. They're not going to say, this badge says John Doe. Are you John Doe? Prove that you're John Doe. That never happens. Now, that's not to say that might not happen. If you go thinking that you will never be checked and you are suddenly checked, bummer for you, right? Like, because security changes every year. But in the past, what I just described has been possible. So if someone did actually win the lottery 4 times, they could conceivably still get 4 passes and distribute them to other people. The other possibility is that you entered 4 times because you didn't read the print that was there that said you were going to be charged immediately, and you still only won 1. You lucked out. You got the advantage of having 4 entries when other people only had 1 entry, and it paid off for you because you lost 3 times but won once. So now you got 1 ticket, and you still kind of did the same thing that Marco was complaining about from last year, that people, sort of just bought a whole bunch and used the shotgun approach and crossed their fingers. The system of charging immediately will probably work better next year when everybody knows that it's a thing. But this year, it only worked as well as people's attention during the purchase process to notice that text there. And I do not doubt that the text was there, but I don't know, just like your condition to just go click, 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 click. I didn't read it. I didn't notice it. I just assumed that it would, if I saw anything to that effect, I would have assumed they're just going to do an auth on a card, but they're not going to do a settle. And that's just what everybody does on purchases to make sure it's a legitimate card and stuff like that, right? It never occurred to me that it would be non-refundable. And realistically speaking, like I said, I don't think it is non-refundable. You can always probably dispute it with the credit card company or whatever and get the charge reversed.
Yeah, a chargeback is very possible to fix it, but that's kind of a crappy thing to do. This is a pretty bad reason to invoke a chargeback if you end up having to do it.
And I think this is an improvement over last year's system. I just think that the communication about this improvement should have been more in your face. And next year, I think it will be more socialized amongst all the people who care enough to enter this lottery that it will be a better deterrent. But this year, seems like it'll probably shake out similarly to last year in terms of how many people put in multiple entries and stuff.
I don't know. We'll see. Anyone who really pays attention to this sort of thing is likely to have only put in one entry. Like I said, I put in 2, and just like you, John, I just clicked immediately through everything. I think in no small part because I'm so trained and conditioned from earlier years when it was a mad dash. And even though conceptually I understand it's a lottery and the time doesn't matter, I'm still conditioned to, oh my God, got to get in. And because of that, I didn't really read anything. But anyone who is paying any attention at all, or is friends with people who pay attention, like I am, is going to have heard about this. So I don't think there'll be that many that double dip, but I am curious to see how it's handled.
I just love that for the first time ever, I paid attention to something and read something that you guys didn't. Because I during the process of reserving my first spot, I didn't reserve a second one. During the process of reserving my first spot, I immediately got that impression and immediately noticed the change. And I think they were very clear about it. But we will see.
If you don't have an eye towards multiples, like I was never going to buy multiples, I have no way to buy multiples. If they're, I'm just skimming the text, it's not relevant to me. But if, like you are planning to go through one window, click, 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 and then go through a second window, click, 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 I imagine what you were looking for is some kind of prohibition that says if the same person enters the lottery 2 times, all their entries would be nullified or something like that. Like, that's what you should basically be on the lookout for,
right.
Which would motivate you to read all the text and then actually read.
Well, and there is actually like a rule in there that says like 1 per person, basically, and who knows how they're going to enforce it. Obviously, this if you're playing like nicely by the rules, you wouldn't enter more than 1 time in a system like this. It doesn't sound like the kind of thing where like if all your accounts have your name on them, so you're trying to pick up like 2 badges with the same name on them. You're going to, as somebody pointed out in the chat earlier, when you go in and pick up your badge, it's sorted by last name. So you'd probably see the exact same person giving you your badge and signing you in.
It is by Apple ID ultimately. So like they may be like, oh, there's 2 people. What if you have 2 people who actually have the same name? But of course they have 2 different Apple IDs. They would have 2 badges that both say John Doe on them, right? And they would say, I'm John Doe. Which John Doe are you? I'm John Doe with Apple ID, whatever, right? And so you just have to keep going back and picking up more John Doe badges. But you can also just have different names on your Apple IDs for your multiple accounts.
Yeah, that's true. But either way, it's now in order to get multiple in order to have multiple chances of getting tickets, you have to jump through a lot of hoops now and possibly do some pretty crappy things, and so it's probably not worth it. I think and I hope this would probably deter most people from doing that, but we will see, because it would be more fair of a system if people didn't do that. But the way it was last year, you kind of can't blame people for doing it because it's so easy and there's no downside. So I think this is probably a move for the better. It is going to be interesting though to see how it shakes out as people who didn't read the text get double charged. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this goes. And I genuinely wish the 2 of you guys the best of luck. I really hope that we all get in, but I hope that you guys get in. But we'll see what happens. And it sounds like no matter what, Marco, I'll be seeing you out there, and hopefully we'll be able to guilt John into it between now and then.
The 2 of you don't even want to go to the session, so I think you should just forego tickets entirely and cancel it.
I didn't say that.
You're just like, I'm going to go to AltConf, I'm going to be hanging out at bars, and expand my horizons.
No, like the reason I've never gone to AltConf is because I keep getting tickets. And so, like, I know that if I have a ticket to WWDC, I'm going to every session. Like, I always do. I might miss, like, 1 time slot somewhere, maybe for something else, but that's very rare. Like,
Ditto.
Usually I go to every time slot. And even though I always comically pick wrong. Like, whenever there's always, like, 3 or 4 different choices of, like, things that are going on during this time slot that I'm kind of interested in or that I might be interested in, I always pick the wrong one. I'm always in the session that nobody else is in, and it's always like not quite what I thought it would be, and everyone who went to the other one said, oh, it was awesome. I'm just terrible at choosing what to go to.
Yep, totally. All right, before we go any further about this, let's thank somebody else if we could, please.
Our second sponsor this week is Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website, portfolio, and online store. For a free trial and 10% off, visit squarespace.com and enter offer code ATP at checkout. We actually just made our shirt site as a page on our site like 20 minutes before the show started. We were making this whole new page on Squarespace. It was ridiculously easy. We had these graphics of our shirts. We uploaded them into these little gallery things, inserted text between them, and we wanted to customize the on-click behavior. And so Casey actually went in and wrote some JavaScript to hack the DOM and customize the on-click behavior and just inserted it into the page. You can do that. So all this like drag and drop stuff and the fancy stuff, that's all available. It's all very easy to use. But if you want to go in and write some JavaScript and actually like hack the page, you can, and we have. And it's so great the way it spans the range from beginner to advanced, and it's so easy. And yeah, like we could have set up another page somewhere, but it was so fast and easy to just do it there. And that's basically their selling point to geeks like us, which is like, we can make our own site, we can make our own page, we can make our own CMS or use some other custom one or whatever. But why do all that when it's so easy to just do it on Squarespace? We'll save so much time and then be done with it. That is, and there's so much that they do for you that you get for free just by using their platform. Things like, not only all the dynamic features, like the cool gallery stuff, the light boxes that we had first before Casey hacked through them and removed them. There's like all sorts of cool stuff that we can do on Squarespace that you just get with like 2 clicks. And it's just so great. And compared to anything else that you as a geek or as a web developer could make yourself, it's just a massive time savings to just use theirs. Now, they all know that, of course, a lot of programmers listen to our show. Squarespace is proud to be made in New York. They created a new thing called NY Commit. This will select up to 10 engineers from across America to experience the history, vibrancy, and diversity of Squarespace's home. Apply today, and if you're asked to interview before April 30th, Squarespace will bring you and your spouse or partner on a complimentary weekend in New York City. They will show you how the city inspires Squarespace to help anyone build beautiful websites. Learn more about that at nycommit.com. Squarespace is awesome. Only $8 a month, and you get a free domain if you buy it for the year up front. Everything comes with, of course, drag-and-drop design, beautiful things, simple, powerful features. Everything's responsive for mobile. There's built-in commerce if you need it. A whole bunch of stuff built in, way too much to fit in one ad spot. So start a trial today. Check it out yourself. Just try. Go there, create a fake site, a real site, doesn't matter. Try it out. Go to squarespace.com to give it a try. When you decide to sign up, use offer code ATP to get 10% off your first purchase. Thank you very much to Squarespace for supporting our show. Squarespace, start here, go anywhere.
Moments before we started recording tonight, there was a bit of a bombshell that John dropped. John, would you like to tell us about that?
It's not a bombshell. I've been talking about it on this podcast for like 8 months.
It's a bombshell, John.
8 months we've been talking about it.
It's the least surprising bombshell to the people who know you the best.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, as I've been discussing since I think I published my OS X Yosemite review last year, I'm like, I think this might be the last one. Well, I'm now making it official. 2 things are official. One, I actually posted something to hypercritical.co, which hasn't happened since I put up the Yosemite review. And 2, what I posted there was an explanation that I am not going to review whatever the next major version of OS X that Apple will presumably announce at WWDC turns out to be. And I've explained why I was thinking of stopping the reviews many, many times on the show. I kind of tried to distill that explanation into a short little post that I admittedly wrote in 10 minutes before we started recording the show. But you can go to hypercritical.co and read it. And I don't think there's anything really new to say. I just feel like I'm done with that. I've done that. And I did it the best that I could do it. And at a certain point, the dread of having to do it outweighs the joy of having done it, and it kind of crossed over that threshold around 10.9, 10.10, and like honestly, 10.9 probably would have been the last one, except it was like they didn't change the UI, and it was so clear they were going to change the UI, and I really love round numbers, and so I said I'm going to hold out for 10.10, and I'm totally glad that I did. I wrote 10.10 knowing that it would more or less be my last. I tried to end it with some amount of finality. Obviously, it's, nothing is ever over. Like, it will continue on and so on and so forth, but it's the end of the road for me, I think. 15 years, 10.0 through 10.10, plus a bunch of the developer reviews, plus other things. I think I've got it covered. I think I did it. And so now someone else can take over. And, like, so much has changed since I started writing these reviews. When I started writing them, I was the only person writing anything about OS X before people even knew what it was. Like, either you were a Mac user and you didn't hear about this at all, or you are not a Mac user and you didn't care what the hell Apple did, but aren't they going out of business anyway? Who the hell cares, right? And so part of the reason I got any kind of notoriety was because I would write these articles about this thing that people didn't even know it existed. They're like, OS X, what? I don't know. Like, you can see from like the first paragraph, like my first 5 reviews were telling people that the X is a Roman numeral 10. Which, granted, people still mispronounce, including, I've heard, by the way, the audio version of the new Steve Jobs book. The guy reads it as OS X. Jeez. Anyway, no excuse for that. But back then, people didn't know what it was. And they're like, Unix, and it's a Mac, and it's got a command line. Well, I'm sure it won't ship with the command line because that wouldn't be a Mac then. And like, just, it was such a different world. These days, it's covered. Like, forget about iOS. Like, even OS 10, like, there are tons of great reviews out there. The idea of a long-form tech nerd review that goes into obsessive detail is now not a new idea. It's all over the place. A lot of people are great at it. I feel like I'm not needed anymore. I feel like I've done what I had to do, and people have got it covered. And we moved on to scroll-jacking animated video reviews anyway. So I am a dinosaur from an earlier era. The hardest thing about writing this little summary of why I'm not doing any more OS X reviews was that I would end up having to link to my early reviews, and boy, I cannot look at those. Like, and I say that's the way it should be with everything. That's the way it is. But I go back to those old ones and like, why did you think this was ready to be published? Like, we didn't have copywriters back then. We didn't really have editors to speak of. It was just, we didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know what I was doing. Boy, definitely a different world. So I at the bottom of the this explanation, I put links to all of my old OS X reviews, also links to the pre-releases, and links to a couple of retrospectives. I wrote a retrospective about my reviews when I hit 10 years worth of OS X reviews. I did a retrospective. I also did one at 5 years of the OS and 10 years of my reviewing them. And this ending one is around 15. So there were a lot of milestones in there, but you want to check it out, you can. And this year, I have no doubt that you will have no problem finding some really excellent reviews of OS X, as you have been able to for the past several years. And I'll talk about it on ATP, so if you want to hear what I have to say about OS X, 10.11, whatever the hell they're going to call it, you know where to come. I'll have plenty to say about it. I just won't write it down this time.
So let's get ahead of at least one or two questions. If somebody set up a Kickstarter to try to fund and buy your time in order to get you to write another review, you will not accept that money. You will not do another review.
Is the Kickstarter for a machine that will actually pause time, allowing me to write the review in a month that goes by in an instant? Then that might be possible. But otherwise, you can't, time may be money, but money is not time. And like, the whole idea, as I say at the end of this review, when I decided that I'm not doing this, and when I told Ars Technica that I'm not going to do the review for them or for anybody else for that matter, I was so relieved because I thought of the idea of a summer. I have a summer stretching out before me, and that summer I won't be just obsessing the entire summer over this one thing. How am I going to fit it in? How am I going to get it done? How am I going to work it through all like my vacations and kids' vacations? Will I get it done? When is the OS going to ship? Like, that's what my summers have been like. And just the relief of being like, this summer, that's not what it's going to be like. And of course, I just replaced that stress with a different stress by doing a bunch of home renovations. But anyway, that's the idea. There's a spot free in my stress pyramid, right? And I can just take something else and put it in there. And hopefully it will be less stressful. And the second thing is like WWDC. The prospect of going to WWDC and not having to write a review, well, it means that I'm not going to get a press pass this year, right? So fine. So if I don't get in the lottery, like last year I got a press pass from Apple. If I don't get the lottery this year, I'm just, tough luck, right? But the idea of being able to go to WWDC and just go to whatever the hell sessions I want and just enjoy them and not frantically take notes and not obsess about what I'm going to write about, that is exciting and relaxing to me. Like going there as like a civilian, that is very attractive to me. So that's how I know it was time to stop. If I'm just like excited about all the things that are going to be different now that I'm not writing it.
Do you plan on doing some sort of small blog post for your blog or some sort of quick impressions or anything like that?
History has shown that I'm terrible at writing anything on my blog. So I would, if you're going to bet on that, I'm going to say bet against because that's the safe bet there. I will certainly, we'll talk about it at length here, right? So that's, it's not like I don't have an outlet for my thoughts without this long form writing thing that I do once a year. I will talk about it on the podcast and I won't, another thing that I get to enjoy is like in past years, I've intentionally held back my opinions about OS 10 on the podcast, because it's like, well, I'm saving it for the review. Like, why spoil the entire review by talking about it for months and months on the podcast, even though apparently it doesn't count, and in many people's minds, and only the review counts. But anyway, now we'll just be able to talk about it as things occur to us, and I won't be like hoarding my insights for this, 30,000 word thing that I'm going to dump out. And then after it dumps out, trying to like retroactively say, let me explain to you my thinking behind these things and when I thought them. And it will be nice to just be able to say things as they come. And I assume most of that will be on the podcast. If I write something on my site, I suppose it could happen, but it doesn't seem likely.
I have mixed emotions about this era ending, because I really have always enjoyed, even before I knew you, I've always enjoyed your reviews.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I do know you, and I've seen your stress build over the last few years, especially, I can see both sides of it. Like, I can see both that, man, I really wish you'd continue these because I love reading them, but also I see that it really does seem to be making you miserable more and more each time, and that every time, like for the last few years, every time you say you would be writing one, I'd be surprised that you were still doing it because of how miserable it had made you the year before. Yeah,
I mean, it's always been like, it's not like it's gotten more miserable. It's always been kind of miserable, but it's got to be balanced by like, well, do you feel like you have something to say? Do you feel like there's something and in the beginning it was totally balanced out, but like, of course I have something to say. This is a crazy new thing, like Unix and the Mac, and then the operating system was this big hairy mess, and you're like, boy, I've got things to say about this. If this is going to replace the Mac, they got a lot of work to do, right? And they more or less straighten things out, and I have my things that I still complain about, like the file system and the Finder and all the different UI things in the dock and the graphical stuff. But like, at a certain point, you're like, either this could go on forever, or I got to feel like that I've said what I have to say, and like it's time. I'm not going to top myself at this point. Maybe the writing will get better, but it's just such a different world. Like, iOS is so dominant that didn't even exist when I started, and everything about OS 10 has to be written in terms of iOS. So half of my recent reviews are kind of like half iOS reviews, because OS 10 is, features and its state in the entire industry is a reflection of wherever iOS is. And, I don't know. I'm sure there will come a time when they release a new version of OS 10 that is such a radically different thing that I'll be like, oh man, I could have written a review of that would have, returned to form or whatever. But I just feel like I need to expand my horizons. Like, what kind of writer, like, this is about something I put at the bottom. I just added at the last minute at the bottom of this post to remind people that my full-time job has never been as a technology writer. My full-time job has never been a podcaster. Like, my full-time job is as a programmer. All this stuff I do in the quote-unquote free time that I can carve out of my life with my family and my real job. And there's not a lot of that time. As anyone who has children and a wife and a regular 9-to-5 job that they go to, see how much time you can carve out for anything, really, any kind of hobby type thing. And if those hobby things end up either like not being fun, it's like, well, then when is your fun time? It's like, well, after my regular job, I have my podcasting job, and after my podcasting job, I have my my freelance writing job, and then I have my family responsibilities. And it's like, sometimes I just want to, just relax and not have to do anything. And it's a balance. Like, I mean, I get paid for writing these things, so that's good, and I enjoyed writing them, and I enjoyed having written them. And podcasting is what has come to replace a lot of my writing, because it honestly, for me, because I'm such a terribly slow writer, takes less time to talk on a podcast. And so the ratio of enjoyment to investment of time is much better for podcasting. So I've been, as I noted in the thing, I've been podcasting. Like, I tried to do the math, but I didn't have time to do all the Google searching of my calendar to see. I'm doing like, 1.5, 2 podcasts a week for the past 4 or 5 years or something. I'm a fairly prolific podcaster at this point. And it takes way less time than doing a single OS 10 review, because just, we're just talking here, right? And you just show up and you talk, and the whole ATP thing of not doing research, like, it makes it sustainable and puts the balance way on the side of enjoyment for podcasts.
And that's by design. I mean, that's like exactly why we do it this way. And I have a similar battle as you in my mind of like, when do I write a blog post versus when do I save it for the podcast? Like,
well, but blog posts are a little bit easier, but it's like, the kind of blog post is the worst is the one where you got to look up stuff. You're going to the Intel site. You're looking at spec pages. You're looking at benchmarks. And then what if you have to start testing things yourself? It's so much easier to bang out like a 3-paragraph, like this thing I just wrote here. It's all opinion, a couple links to old stuff, done and done. There's no facts. There's no like things that you need to verify. And then product reviews are the worst because you got to verify things about an unreleased product from a company that isn't really particularly communicative to you. And there's a deadline, and it's just, yeah. So there's a range within writing, but I mean that I'm a slow writer no matter what I'm writing. Like, I'm amazed that I even got this thing done in 10 minutes. I just sort of closed my eyes and typed, and like, I would never have published that if we didn't have the podcast deadline coming up and the shirts that we had to get up, and that actually motivated me to just hit the publish button. But I would have sat on that for 4 more days to try to get it right.
Yeah, and I think a big part of what makes podcasting so much more attractive or more efficient of time is, you know, as we've talked about in a couple episodes ago, like, the expectations of this medium are that it's a casual conversation. And so like you know, like I've spoken at a couple of conferences recently, and I talked to a few people, and I mentioned to a few people how I'm always very, very nervous to give conference talks, and I don't really like doing it that often. And if somebody has listened to this show, that surprises them, because here I don't generally sound nervous. And my reason for the difference there is that even though like a conference talk will be watched by a very small fraction of the number of people who hear the show every week, the expectations are extremely different from each of those. So like, the expectations of a conference talk are that it is this like totally pre-written, rehearsed, polished, researched thing that is fully formed beforehand, and all the work is you know, thought through and done, and then it's presented to you as a complete polished product. And a blog post has many of the same expectations, that it's something, this is like a more formal kind of communication, a more like structured, researched, more finalized, polished kind of thing that has higher standards applied to it if you have much of an audience at all, or any audience. And the kind of reviews that you did, that seems like it would have an even higher expectation there inherently, of like, the things you say better be correct, you better be seeing all sides of it, this better be complete, correct, and polished, and well done. And I can totally understand why that would not only stress you out a lot, but why that is less and less appealing over time as you have these other outlets like podcasting, where the expectations are so different and so much more kind of low key or casual, so that it's less of a time commitment, it's less stress, there's less pressure to have everything exactly right that you ever say. I totally get that.
Yeah, and like the value, like if you were to carve up an OS X review and to say what parts are valuable to people, it's shifted such that I think the parts that are the hardest work have the least value. Like, especially in the type of reviews that I did, because it was like, oh, your reviews are in-depth or technical, but I was never like a Tom's Hardware or AnandTech or whatever, where it's all about like benchmarks and specs and whatever, and we love those reviews, and I love that somebody does them, and I love that someone isn't me, right? Because that is incredibly hard work, and we crave that info, but we are few and nerdy, right? And so like most people, and that's the hardest part of the reviews to do, like getting the particular details of tech or software or compatibility or other things that I'm honestly ill-equipped to do, because I don't have a computer lab here. Like, I only ever had loaner hardware for 1 year's review, right? I just have the computers that I have, and I do what I can, and that was fine in the early days of the web when no one knew what the heck they were doing. We were all just like banging on keyboards like monkeys trying to, you know, make something happen, right? But these days, there are professional organizations that, like, you know, have people dedicated to, you know, lab test things and like, or experience at doing battery testing. Like when I had to do the battery testing for Mavericks, like that was miserable, and there's no way in hell I did a good job as an AnandTech review. Like I couldn't. I don't have the experience. Those guys do it all the time. They have a system. They have their own custom applications. Like they can test 17 different computers against each other because they have all those computers. Right? I couldn't do that because I don't have those computers. And that's the hardest work. And I think it has the least value for people who are reading my reviews, because people who are reading my reviews, it's like they want me to get that right, and it needs to be there, but they're reading it for like, you know, the sort of like criticism or insight or historical context or also like technical background on things, where it's like, you know, if you read my reviews because they're kind of an aspirational thing where you're like, I want to be the type of nerd who understands everything in this review, but I don't yet. So I can follow these links to do it. And there'll be a section in, 5 years ago about Unix permissions. And I'm not that familiar with Unix, but I'm an old-time Mac user. And I would like someone to explain to me what the hell Unix permissions are, nestled in the middle of a big, giant OS X review. That's a lot of the things that people say, hey, I remember reading your review and I remember the section on whatever was the first time that I learned about whatever. And it's like, I sneak those things into the review. And those are the fun parts to write about, just kind of like things that I already know well, that are just background information for the thing, or talking about the UI criticism and stuff like that. Those are easier to write, and that's where most of the value is. But that other stuff is so much harder to write, and people seem to care less and less about it. So I was, I feel like the time of my style of review has come and gone, and now it has swung in opposite directions, where you have the super technical review, which I never was, and the super soft, touchy-feely review, which I could kind of do, but it actually interests me a little bit less. Like, I wanted to do the format of my review and the way it's sort of structured and the parts that it makes is kind of like a Motley type thing, where it's got all these parts that you wouldn't think mixed together, but that's the mix that I wanted, and that's what I did. And I did it and refined that form, and I feel like that's it. And I feel like that form has less value to the reader these days. It's less important to the reader, and it's less interesting to me because I feel like I've done it,
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you are more critical on your own work than I would venture to say probably anybody else in the audience is. But I can see where you're coming from, of like, you've done this, it's done. Time for something else.
Yeah, and plus, like, reviewing a single product for some, like, even if I was like, I'm a full-time professional product reviewer, which I'm not and have never been, again, but even if I was, would you want to keep reviewing the same product, like, year after year? You want to review different things. You want to branch out. You want to do different styles of reviews. Like, if this was actually my full-time job, I would have grown tired of this long ago. Because it was only like a once-yearly thing, I could tolerate it for longer, but it's like, I want some variety too, right?
I'm sad, John. I'm sad. It wasn't that long ago that we were making videos about getting our fingers ready to read your review. And now it's a time long gone.
Get your ears ready to hear me complain.
My ears are always ready for that, John.
Amen, brother.
You just made an unintentional gaming reference. Congratulations, Marco. This is the new twist on the John makes a reference that nobody gets. Now Marco is making a reference that nobody gets.
Including me.
Yeah, he said his ears are ready.
Still nothing. Yeah,
I know. You're not going to get it. You don't get it, but you made it. Someone in the chat room will.
Is this like when Americans try to speak English to non-English speakers just by repeating themselves slowly and loudly?
No, it's just another reference.
All right. What else is awesome these days?
Our final sponsor this week is Backblaze. Go to backblaze.com/ATP. Backblaze is online backup. Now, I have been using this forever. Long before they were a sponsor, I've been using Backblaze. I've tried other ones out there. Backblaze is by far my favorite. In so many ways, it is great. So first of all, it is unlimited and unthrottled. So for $5 a month, you get unlimited disk space. That's it. $5 a month, unlimited disk space. I can't believe how they can do this. I don't know how, because between me and my wife, they get $10 a month because we have one computer each, and we have something like 4 terabytes in there. It's a lot. And they probably don't make money on us, to be honest, but they still offer it. $5 a month, unlimited space per computer. Really, really great. Now, if you don't have online backup, I have to urge you to do it. There are so many problems that this protects you from. If you just have like a local time machine thing or a clone that you occasionally remember to update, first of all, online backup is continuous. When things are changed, they can be uploaded immediately if you want to. They can really be quite significant gains there. And there's a whole class of problems that online backup protects you from. So anything that happens that would affect the electronics in both your computer and in the time machine drive plugged into it, say, or the clone plugged into it, you are protected from all those classes. So things like electric surges, if you have a lightning strike or whatever. Things like floods. If, let's say, you're in an apartment and the person above you floods their bathroom and it floods into your apartment and drips water all over your computer and everything breaks. That will probably kill your external hard drive too. It protects you from that. Fires, theft, all sorts of possible problems that online backup protects you from. It's a nice fail-safe. You don't have to replace your local backup with it. In fact, I recommend that you don't. but it is really nice to have as an ultimate failsafe of like if everything that if all the equipment I have gets harmed or stolen or somehow destroyed or hurt, I always have that online backup as a failsafe. $5 a month, you can't go wrong. Now, as you know, as back to Backblaze specifically, they have over 100 petabytes of data backed up in their data centers. Restoring is easy. They have an online interface you can do on the web, or they also have a mobile app with iOS or Android. So you can actually go in and you can restore like one file with the mobile app just to get it on your phone. So if you're on vacation somewhere, you're away from your computer or whatever, you can get a file off your computer through Backblaze. You can also restore, of course, whole directories, whole drives, whatever you want. Backblaze runs native on the Mac and on Yosemite, and of course, they always update. They even, on launch day, they had a dark mode Yosemite icon. Like, if you run Yosemite in dark mode, you probably know, like, half your menu things didn't have icons. Many of them probably still don't. Backblaze is there on day one. They keep up to date. You're never, like, upgrading to a new OS, and then, Backblaze isn't ready yet. It's going to break or be weird. Nope, they're always ready on day one. It doesn't use, like, Java or anything else. It's all native code. It runs natively at full speed. It's not too hard on your CPU. It's smart about not being too hard on your bandwidth. Really a very, very, very good service, very good app. I can't say enough good things about Backblaze. There's no gimmicks, there's no add-ons. $5 a month, unlimited space. It is as simple as that. Get a risk-free, no credit card required trial, which is a really nice thing. No credit card required, a real free trial at backblaze.com/ATP. Backblaze.com/ATP. Really go right now. It is seriously very, very easy to get set up, and it is so nice to have the peace of mind for just $5 a month that all your stuff is backed up, and it's really great. So definitely check it out. Backblaze.com/ATP. Thanks a lot.
One more thing on Backblaze. Did you see the blog post they had this year on their always excellent Backblaze blog where they talk about their hard drive failures and stuff?
Oh yeah, I love those posts.
So this one was about like a crop of Seagate 3 terabyte drives they bought sometime around the Thailand tsunami time, and it's just the investigation of what went wrong is one thing, but just listen to this. And they buy thousands of drives, first of all right, and they say in their experience 80% of the drives they buy are still working 4 years after they buy them. But with this particular crop of drives, just 10% of the drives were still working 4 years later.
Oh my God.
So like they bought a bunch of these and was like, yeah, they're like, okay. And then all of a sudden, like around year 2, like just massive amounts of them failed at once. It's like the nightmare scenario. Only, you know, if you buy a hard drive and it goes bad before you think it does, they bought thousands of hard drives. And like 90% of them are dead in 4 years. That is tough. Anyway, it's a great blog post. We'll put the link in the show notes.
What else do we want to talk about WWDC?
I was going to say, like, to get back to the OS X review, so how does this affect my decision? It does affect it because it's like, if I don't, win the lottery, I'm not going to get a press pass because last year I got the press pass through Ars Technica, who I was writing a review for. I'm not doing that again this year. Unless Apple wants to give me a press pass for ATP, which I will gladly accept. But anyway, I don't have a reason to be there other than recreation and seeing people, right? And so that changes my calculus of whether I would go or not, because there's no quote unquote work related reason for me to be there. It would be entirely social and vacation. And really, I want to go to the sessions. I want to get that experience of being able to go there and enjoy them without having like homework, so to speak. So that does factor into my decision of whether I will go out there for a shorter period of time, for the whole time, or not at all if I don't happen to get a ticket.
Yeah, it's also, I think it will change everyone's calculus also that hotel prices seem to have gone up this year noticeably.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Like everything seems to be more expensive because like the plane ticket I'm sure is going to be terrible too, because I didn't already buy my plane ticket because I'm waiting to see if I get a lottery, right?
Yeah, I mean, like usually for this thing, the hotel is the biggest cost, often matching or surpassing the cost of the conference ticket itself. So you're looking at like $2,000 for the hotel for the week, and it's $1,600 for the ticket, $3,600. Then the plane ticket, you're probably looking at another $400 to $800, depending on maybe more if you're coming from internationally. So you're looking at like $4,500 worth of base cost here, plus expenses that you incur while you're there. Plus you got to take vacation days. So I can totally see why this would like as these costs go up.
Yeah, and I'm not getting any of this money back. Like ours would pay for my travel and my ticket, or in the case of a press pass, Apple would pay for the ticket. Like there is no reimbursement. There's, you know what I mean? I'm willing to go out of pocket for it. Like despite the fact that it's ridiculously expensive, fine. But like it all factors in.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we can get you there because I think it would be a shame if you were not there.
Yep.
However, for people who choose not to go because it's very expensive, I totally can understand that.
All right, well, we'll see. Something I've been thinking about is what happens if, John, you don't get a ticket, if Marco, you don't get a ticket, and then I get a ticket. Because we've already established earlier in this show that I don't do well with missing out on things, apparently. This is like a new discovery for me. But I don't... I almost wonder if that would be not worse, but bad. I mean, I would still absolutely go to the conference and I would still try to learn as much as I can because I enjoy it so much. And I always feel like so amped up on the way home about all the awesome new stuff I've learned and about what's coming from Apple. But I would really, to some degree, I would be a little bit bummed if I was the only one that got a ticket, because then I'd be missing out on all the fun things that maybe you guys would be doing, or just Marco or whatever. And so,
I wouldn't be doing any fun things. So
yeah, that's true. All the fun things Marco would be doing. Good call.
No, I mean, I think what would happen is that if John doesn't get a ticket, I bet he's not going, right? I mean, that's very, I bet that's what happens. If I don't get a ticket, then I'll go and I'll see you at night. And then I will walk by you in the keynote line at 9:30 a.m.
Yes, you will.
When I have just woken up, and I'll have a fresh cup of coffee, which you don't like anyway. Maybe I'll walk by with like a fresh, I don't know, vodka or whatever you drink.
9:30?
I don't know, whatever. It's something to make you feel jealous.
How about an orange juice?
That's what the alt conf people do. The people who don't go to the conference, they just stay out until 5 a.m., wake up drunk, like, yep, WWDC.
Yeah, they can stream the keynote live at 10 a.m. when they have just woken up for that purpose, and not having woken up at like 5:30 to go get online. So that's what will happen. You will do the homework for the rest of us by going to the conference and going to the sessions, and that's it. I mean, I would feel bad if I get a ticket and you don't.
Oh, and ditto. I would feel guilty if I got a ticket and you didn't, because you could make a very reasonable argument that you deserve it more. And I'm giving air quotes here, but I mean, it very well. You could make a very valid argument that you are actively developing iOS apps, so you should have the ticket more than I should.
Yeah, but I was talking to our friend _David Smith about this. How much more value do you get out of being there in person than if you just watch the sessions as they live stream and do that? And so the biggest value is, there's some socialization aspects of seeing people in the conference center and the various like spontaneous meetings you have there. Academically, the biggest value is probably the labs. There are some sessions that are not live streamed or videoed, like the lunchtime sessions are usually not released on video. And the videos edit out any periods of applause or laughter, and usually in the videos, you can't see the presenter. It only shows it's just video of the slides and any demos that take place. So you do miss a lot of the nuance of the presentation, but for the most part, you're missing the socialization and the labs. And I have had very good experiences in the labs so far. However, this year I don't really have any really big pressing questions I have for the lab right now.
Well, you want to know how to make Overcast for the new Apple TV, right?
yeah, we'll see if that's a thing. But yeah, in reality, if I get a ticket, I'll be very happy. I will use it as much as I possibly can use a ticket. If I don't get a ticket, I will be bummed, but I will still have a really good week. Yeah.
But
it is kind of inconvenient. If you go with a group of friends or coworkers every year, it is really awkward that that ever since demand started really outstripping supply a couple of years ago, now you have these split crews where you have oh well, only one of us got in, or everyone got in except that one guy, or something like that. It certainly causes social pressures and weird things, I think.
This is where it pays off to be antisocial, because us antisocial introverts are in our element when we are not in a group. I guess I have to splinter off on my own and go through a series of sessions all by myself and not talk to anybody.
Oh,
that's paradise.
Well, and you were great because you would always go to like the Mac only sessions that nobody else went to.
I know, like there's nobody in those rooms anymore. It's just me and a bunch of lonely Mac developers. Yeah, no, but those are fun, and you'd be sitting like the not well populated ones are great. You'd be sitting there, and Craig Federico would come in and sit 2 seats over to you. Like just hey, it's just 5 people here listening to this talk about some Mac framework that no one cares about because iOS is the new hotness, right?
Yeah. I think it's important to point out, though, that for the last couple of years, I feel like the three of us have spent a fair bit of time critiquing and really complaining about the WWDC ticket process. And granted, we're not all bitter right now because we don't know if we're getting tickets or not. But I think this is probably as good a process as they can really get for a situation where, like Marco said, demand desperately outweighs the supply.
Well, there was the rumor about them using a bigger venue. Do you remember that? Like, they're going to use north and south and not west, and therefore the supply will be slightly increased. And that turns out not to be the case, as far as we know, right?
That's correct. I mean, that would be good, but that would potentially change the feeling of the show. I feel like I'm coming across a little snobby and get off my lawn, and you know what? Oh well. But part of the magic of WWDC is that it's the right amount of people, I think, so that when you have, like when we go, I personally know maybe 50 people there, generally speaking. And it's not unreasonable or rare for me to see most of those 50 people in and out of the sessions throughout the day. And if the conference was 10 times bigger, just for argument's sake, then I may not see those people. And just like you've been saying, Marco, part of the beauty of WWDC is those impromptu conversations that you have with friends that you do and don't know in the halls in between sessions. And so, I don't know, I'm sure it would probably be for the greater good if it was bigger, but it would definitely feel different if it was bigger.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's what you make of it. And if you go, it's such a big community now that like, anything that any of us say about it is not representative of the whole. Like there's so many people who are iOS developers. There are so many people there who we don't know, who don't know us, who like it isn't just like one big community. It's a bunch of small communities. So if you go and seek out a certain group or your friends or people you want to talk to or have business discussions with or whatever, you can find them. If you're looking around randomly, like in front of Moscone, looking for somebody in particular, you're going to have a hard time with it. But that's true whether you get in or not. That's true whether, how many people are there or not. Really, I think it's just, it's what you make of it.
Yeah.
That made no sense. Thanks a lot to our 3 sponsors this week, Automattic, Squarespace, and Backblaze, and we will see you next week.
Now the show is over. They didn't even mean to begin, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. John didn't do any research. Marco and Casey wouldn't let him, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. And you can find the show notes at atp.fm. And if you're into Twitter, you can follow them at CASEYLISS. So that's Casey Liss, MARCOARMENT, Marco Arment, SIRAC, USA Syracuse. It's accidental. They didn't mean to. Accidental. Tech podcast so long.
So in the last week, Apple has done all this crazy stuff with the watch and try-ons, and we're all talking about bands. Meanwhile, they also solved photos.
Did they?
And that's the least paid attention to.
They released photos. Let's just say that. Did they solve photos?
I haven't used it that heavily yet. However, it did import my whole library, and it seems amazing.
Yeah, we're not supposed to be talking about it now. I'm gonna save it for next week.
All right. I just think it's funny. Photos, it's this massive challenge, this big problem of no one's done this really right yet, and it looks like Apple might have done exactly that and released it this week, and almost nobody noticed.
Well, there was a lot of reviews about it. There were a lot of previews for it. I think Apple was good about, with the public beta of it and the beta of iCloud Photo Library, and then when it actually came out, like I felt like it was pretty well covered, but it is one of those topics that we'll keep because this is like a long-term thing. And we've talked about photos forever, and we've talked about photos and the feature set it provides. And now it's just down to like, okay, the thing came out. How does it work? And I think we'll save that for next week because I will have many things to say about it. And I made these nice notes and we'll just leave them in there.
Fair enough.
What is this thing? The draft generator thing.
All right. This may or may not make it into the final show because it's kind of boring, but I was curious your input from the two of you. So I wrote recently a draft generator for my site. So the idea is when I write for my site on my primary computer, I have an instance of Node running, basically an instance of my entire site running on my local computer. So I'll write a bit, I'll go to Safari, I'll refresh the page, see how it looks. But occasionally, not often, but occasionally I will be writing a blog post on my iPad or on Aaron's computer or something else that I can't even think of. And I want to be able to preview exactly how this markdown will look rendered on the site. So I wrote this draft generator, which all it is a big, huge text area and a button that says render draft. So you paste your markdown in the big text area, you hit the render draft button, and it will render the draft. And it looks at a glance like it's a real post. Now, because it looks like a real post, I don't necessarily want to make this draft generator public in that I don't want anyone to be able to just slam some markdown onto my site and make it look like I wrote something. Am I being paranoid? Absolutely. But just bear with me here. So what do I do to prevent malicious use for something that really is fairly inane to begin with? What I've chosen to do is use a semi-peculiar URL that I know I'll remember, but I don't think people would necessarily stumble on. So it's, the textbook security by obscurity. But I was curious. I don't want to do like a full-on auth system because it's just a draft. Who cares? But what?
I mean, a full-on, just do a basic auth. It's fine.
Yeah, that's what I do on mine.
I mean, it's better than nothing, right?
Well, but why bother? Because
because basic auth is better than security through obscurity. Slightly, but, he's not even using HTTPS, so, like, whatever. But, it's still better than, like, they won't guess my URL.
And I was just curious if you guys had any more interesting and more clever and less obvious ideas.
You could do real auth. I mean, you wrote the code for the site. You could do real auth on it, too. Like, that's a fun little exercise if you want to do that. But basic auth is like, you don't have to write the code for it. Just let the lousy browser do the thing that it does.
Yeah, I mean, basic auth with HTTPS is like really no worse than a lot of systems out there.
Well, it's fun. It's fun to do it yourself. But like, I think the main thing I was thinking of, I know you're saying that's like different computers is the use case here, but this is the type of thing that I do offline. Like my hypercritical posting system is I write in BBEdit, and next to the BBEdit window that I'm writing in, I have a real-time live preview with my site template showing it exactly how it will look in context on my site through the magic of BBEdit's preview filters and templates and all the other crazy-ass features that BBEdit has. It lets me, I don't have to click a button to render draft. As I'm typing, I see exactly what it's going to look like right next to where I'm typing in real time.
Right, and that's basically what I'm doing 99% of the time. It's not real time. I have to go and hit refresh, but that's basically what it is. But what had happened was I'd written the Apple Watch post, I believe on my iPad, if memory serves, and I had done my best to guess at what it would look like by just looking at a generic markdown preview. But as it turns out, there were a couple of minor formatting issues here and there that I really wanted to tweak, including an image that went wrong. And so I really want to be able to see it on the site. And so again, what I figure, well, I'll just eat the markdown, run it through the rendering pipeline, and call it a day. But even though I don't think anyone would likely do anything nefarious with this, it's still, I feel a little exposed by having it out there. And I guess basic auth is really the right answer. And God knows there's probably, if it's not built into Node, there's probably some 300,000 line package I can get from NPM that'll solve this problem for me. But I don't know.
You could just read the header, and I mean, it's pretty simple. If you need to do it yourself, it's not that hard.
That's true. I don't know. I was curious if you guys had any clever ideas, or if you thought I was being insane for even trying to put this behind auth.
My question is, when the hell did the navigation item in your toolbar change to creep?
It's always been there.
I don't like that.
Also, I keep crashing your site.
Yeah, don't type nothing in the field and hit render draft. You get a JavaScript error. That's the first thing I did.
Yeah, I can't get anything to render. Oh,
But that's part of the problem is that you probably are missing metadata. See, and this was designed only for me, so you're probably missing a bunch of metadata that I know to include, but nobody else would.
Well, let's get back to creep. Why is that item called creep? You're trying to say that by anyone wanting to know about anything that you do, that is creepy. Therefore, click the creep button to find out what podcasts you've appeared on. That's not creepy.
I wanted something more interesting than appearances. Did you click the link? Did you see what the slug is?
Yeah, I don't. It's not stalking. You want people to listen to you on podcasts. Not like, how dare you find out what podcasts I'm on and listen to them. You want that to happen. That's why you're on podcasts.
And now for our regularly scheduled segment of making fun of Casey's website implementation details.
Yeah,
This
seriously.
is not an implementation. This is copy editing. We need Faith on here to write some good copy for you. Faith would not put creep as one of the main nav items. Guaranteed.
That's probably true. I think it's tongue-in-cheek and funny, but I can see what you're saying. Then maybe that doesn't come across exactly how I mean.
You're just undercutting yourself, Casey. We're here to tell you that when you should not be.
Have we met? Of course I am. This is what I do.
Who's going to be? Is going to be you and Steve on the podcast to see who can undercut themselves the most.
Yeah, I think that's the plan at some point.
I think you have him beat. Well, of course, that will make you feel better, and maybe now you don't have him beat.
Oh goodness. Well, the chat room is somewhat coming to my defense, but your logic is sound for sure.
It is an expression of your personality. I'll give you that. But I feel like this, like you don't need to be
Self-deprecating.
You don't need to be sabotaging yourself or like you should be promoting yourself. This site is all about you. It's CaseyList.com for crying out loud. It should be all about the awesome things that Casey List does and how awesome they are.
What would you use if not appearances, which not only is a long word, but is what everyone uses? And I want it to be slightly original.
I don't know. I mean, you have lots of options there. Like I have my appearances off of my about page. I don't have it as a top level item, but
I would say there's nothing wrong with the word appearances because if that's what I'm looking for, I would never think to click on a link that says creep.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what that was going to be. Is like, am I going to see a creep? Is to say that I am a creep by clicking there? And yeah, it's like hamburger navigation.
Is that a verb? It's like, do I want to creep right now?
It is meant as a verb, actually, all kidding aside. It's like the kids these days say.
But it's like creeping forward. It's like that. Like that's. I don't know that I would necessarily.
Now I think the kids will get what the creep is about. I got what it was about too, but maybe it's only because I know Casey and I know what must be buried under that link. But
actually, TTE Pass, I probably butchered that, said elsewhere. That's not bad. Appearances, I think, is more direct, but elsewhere isn't a bad option.
Appearances, like you just did a conference talk. Like that's an appearance. Call it appearances.
Yeah. Plus, I don't think it looks good. I think I did try that at some point. I thought it was just way too long.
Yeah, you might have to look for a shorter word to go to the thesaurus or something. But you need to A/B test this, obviously, to see.
There's probably a Node package for that.
We put pictures of celebrities in unflattering poses. Do people click on that more or less than the creep picture?
Manifestation. I'm looking at this thesaurus for appearance.
Speaking of creep and manifestation.
Oh, God.
I have been shopping for home improvement things online. I've been shopping for lamps, outdoor lamps online. Not shopping, but just like searching and everything. And now every web page I go to is covered with the same 900 pictures of lamps that I've looked at. Like, I don't understand. Like, I never knew how pervasive whatever it is, this ad network that has my number now, it's like on every site. I'm like, here too? Seriously? The lamps? They're here again? They're everywhere. It is unbelievable. And it's the same lamps. I'm like, I've already looked at them. It's just like, I'm just going to have to enable ad blocker or something. Like, now I understand the people who, if it's like they're ugly. I liked it better when I was being randomly advertised to with whatever they were doing before. I guess it still beats the terrible line drawings of One Weird Trick, fat belly business things. I really hate those. But the lamps are a close second.
Man, the web sucks these days. It's so bad. All this stuff. It just seems like everyone's in such desperation to try to increase their ad prices and their returns, and web pages just look awful to me now. Like so many pages I go to now, like, there's very few holdouts that still have like tasteful, reasonable layouts and don't have those awful clickbait ads on them and everything. It's really sad.
Yeah, I just want to see like ads. Show me like ads for like Asus laptops and like SSDs. Like I'm willing to see ads for like some. I don't click on them, but I look at them and sometimes they're like, oh yeah, maybe our SSDs are getting cheaper. Like the ads work in that way. But I know that I've been searching for lamps, but that doesn't mean that's it. Your whole world is lamps. How long is this going to last? For the next 3 years of my life? Eventually, I'm going to buy some lamps, and then I will be done. But these ads will still be like, lamp, everywhere I go. It is just unbelievably pervasive. I never would have called, like, I don't even know which sites I'm going to, but it's like every site I go to, every link I tap in, like Twitter or something, lamps.
So creepy.
Yeah.
Speaking of creep.
I've never in the past been tempted to install an ad blocker. Modern web pages are getting so bad, and modern ads are getting even more and more intrusive. Like there's so many more like hover over, pop over kind of things now that like it loads the page for 2 or 3 seconds, then it pops over a thing over the content, and you have to dismiss it. Like
yeah, good luck hitting the little X with your finger.
Yeah, right.
Anything that is not the X is I want to go to the ads website.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's getting so bad now. It's even sites that used to have higher standards now, for whatever reason, whether it's good reasons or not, they don't or they can't maintain those same standards. And so, like, otherwise good sites now have these even worse ads on them, and it's getting so horrible. Like, I don't like the idea of running an ad blocker, but I've never been closer to doing it than I am now, just because it is really getting difficult to read the web.
I don't know. It's weird because I write software for the web for a living, but when I search for lamps and find lamps all over every ad-enabled website I ever visit, it creeps me out. God, does it creep me out.
Yeah.
It's weird. And now I'm thinking even more that I need to change the word creep on my header. What about sightings?
Sightings?
It doesn't really work for audio, but most of your appearances are.
Oh, good point.
You're not Bigfoot.
Wow.
Oh, there you go. I was going to go with Sasquatch, go with Loch Ness.
Well, because what you want is a word that is descriptive, but that is not like arrogant or pompous sounding.
How about works? That's arrogant and pompous sounding. That's my best arrogant and pompous sounding.
I like Elsewhere because it is not arrogant and pompous sounding. Like Appearances is a little bit on the bad side of that.
It's not. It's accurate. He just gave a conference talk. That is literally an appearance.
Yeah, but like Sightings is more arrogant because Sightings is like other people have done this for me. Like other people have spotted me in these places, you know. Whereas like Appearances is like here's where I've been and people have looked at me, and Elsewhere is just here's other things I have done.
Yeah, although as Think Diff is pointing out in the chat, the title of the page is Appearances, coincidentally. But I don't know, I wanted a different word in the header, and I think Elsewhere might be the winner. Now, the problem is if we leave this in the show, by the time everyone goes and looks at my website, they're going to be like, what are they talking about? It already says Elsewhere, or whatever the case may be. But that's all right.